Okay. We are live for Fireside Chat number 283. Let me make a post here, and Discord's been quite cool with daylight savings time messing up every single event. I just edited the event, so why is it not changed? Let's try this. Doesn't work. Okay. Well, that's okay. We have the post. Okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously it's a pretty huge day if you are not aware. The eve of tomorrow, March 15th, is the 6-year anniversary of the beginning of the first Viking era, the previous era to the Fourth Fleet era that we are currently in. And we picked that date for a kind of expansion of platoons, which are currently a thing, but they are become more of a thing starting tomorrow. So we'll start with what the change is going to be for just most people in the clan. Not very much. The main thing is you'll probably have somebody reaching out to you who is your platoon leader, because every single person in WA has been put into a platoon. Which means that there is a platoon leader and possibly a second in command as well in charge of that platoon. Each platoon is generally focused on one specific game. So we have a StarCraft one, a League of Legends one, we have a Command and Conquer one, we have a Guilty Gear one, and so on. So we've tried to sort people based on what is the primary game you play, or do you spend a lot of time with the people that play that game at least. The exception being the auxiliary platoon, Thor's Hammer, which is the all-purpose miscellaneous platoon. So it is naturally also currently our biggest platoon, but some of that is we are still kind of trying to get everyone into the best fit platoon for them. So we may have people transferring out of Thor's Hammer in the future. So, being in a platoon, what does it actually mean? Well, it means you'll have that platoon leader as kind of a resource. If you have any questions, they'll also be talking to you, perhaps trying to see about. They'll be the person that's promoting you. They might be reminding you to post a roll call, that kind of thing. Basically, just there to help you and answer questions. So, having everybody kind of divided up that way with a particular person, go-to person who isn't in charge of too many people to keep track of, should be a nice improvement. The other thing is, now we're not going to require this for March since we're already halfway through, but starting in April, you will have to list your platoon in your roll call. So there's an additional line in roll call. I'm sure it'll take some getting used to for a lot of people. The format has been changed. The pinned format in the roll call channel has been changed to have that platoon line. We're also currently in the process of, we've already given everyone their platoon roles, so you can check your own roles to see what platoon you're in. You can also type ! your name, your command, and that will show that to you, although we're currently updating that. So I think I'm about halfway done during my office hours. I will finish that up, so that should be ready to go within about 45 minutes at most, the name command. You can also check the roster. All the links have been updated, so you can check the roster. There's a link in About WA to the roster, and you can check out which platoon you are in. But again, it doesn't determine if you are a more veteran member, you'll remember warbands or the platoons that we ran at the start of the Fourth Fleet era, where you're actually confined to a specific channel. Well, not confined, but you get access to a specific platoon channel. We're not bringing those back, so we're just keeping the game channels. The channels are staying exactly the way they are right now. So, for example, the League of Legends platoon is not going to have its own channel. Rather, its channel will just be the same League of Legends channel that's still public that we all use anyway. Same thing for Warframe, same thing for Guilty Gear, and so on. Each platoon will just operate in that game channel. So, with that in mind, yes, being in a platoon will mean you'll have that one go-to person leading the platoon who will be talking to you and trying to help you out, and it will mean that you have to put that in your roll call. That's really the only determining factor, but we do want people to be in a platoon that makes the most sense, because in order for people to help you, it helps if they actually know you or they play the same games and so on. So for that reason, that's where we're trying to put everyone in kind of the best fit platoon. If you would rather be in a different platoon, that's totally fine. What you should do is either reach out to your platoon leader, or the normal way to do it is just go to the help channel under welcome. Just click help, open a ticket, just say you want to switch to platoon, any platoon you want, just put it in there. What that does, it opens up a ticket, a little temporary channel, and all the platoon leaders can see that. So very easily, everyone involved will be able to see your request. We can instantly just say, okay, let's do it. Everyone will know. We won't have to worry about, did this lieutenant DM that lieutenant, which captain needs permission. You don't have to do any of that. It just easily opens up a ticket and does it. If you don't want to do it, understandable. If it's kind of an awkward thing that you don't want your platoon leader to know about or something like that, just, DM a platoon leader, maybe the platoon that you want to switch to, or talk to any officer. We will get it sorted. Don't feel bad about doing that, but the ticket system is the easiest way to do that. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to transfer platoons, switch platoons, that's totally fine. Don't feel bad about doing it. Don't hesitate to do it. Just make sure that you do need to tell us so that we can make the change, basically. But yeah, that's the main thing, is that you'll now have kind of a point person to go to with questions and who will be helping you, and you'll be part of that group on that primary game, and that'll be reflected in your roll call, which you'll list what platoon you're in your roll call now as well. So aside from that, it's not a massive change. What we've tried to do is sort of most of the big change is actually for us as officers and moderators on kind of the behind the scenes side of things. So we've been working pretty hard, and I appreciate everyone's work on that to try to get everything ready. And I feel pretty confident that we are ready to roll out with it. Yeah, if you are an officer and you have any questions about the changes or how to do things, just throw it out in Command Center or talk to me. I can easily answer them. I don't mind at all. I'm probably the best person with question to ask about any of the changes, just because I've kind of been going through and updating all the documentation and switching things, so I kind of know how everything works and where it's going to go. Yeah, so now I'll kind of go on to if you are involved in platoon leadership or anything above that, what you need to do. It is a bit more. So trying to kind of space things out. So right now, what I'd like everyone to do, if they haven't already, is double check the people in your platoon. So there's the pinned roster link at Command Center, like there always has been. That's still there. It's roster V2. That's the one you want. If you have the wrong roster open, it says outdated in the name. It has a big red line that says outdated, so you'll know if it's the wrong roster. You want the V2 roster, version 2, the admin link. And just check your platoon. A couple people are running 2 platoons, which is, we don't really like to do that, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. Generally speaking, you're only part of 1 platoon, and that's kind of the rule. So you're only going to be listed on the roster of 1 platoon. The exception is if you're leading a platoon. If you're leading multiple platoons, then you might be listed on both. But it's something we try to avoid if possible. We have almost all of our division leaders just leading divisions rather than leading platoons currently, which just works better. It opens up more room for advancement for people to move up and try running those platoons, and it means that the division leaders don't have such a crazy number of things that they have to be worrying about. So back on track to, if you're a platoon leader, what should you be doing? So yeah, check that roster and just see who's on there. Make sure it makes sense, that there's all those people play that game, or that makes the most sense. You can also check Thor's Hammer, the auxiliary platoon, just under Aux on that roster too, if you want, and see if there's anybody there that you think should be in your platoon. But the Thor's Hammer staff will specifically be looking at that too, as far as figuring out what the main games of all the people in Thor's Hammer are, and seeing about, okay, is there a bunch of people playing this game? Can we maybe look at a platoon for that, starting a new one? Should somebody be transferred? That kind of thing. So Thor's Hammer is kind of going to be the busiest platoon, for sure. But for most platoons, just check that. Check on Discord that all the people have the right division and platoon role that are on your page of the roster. Should all be in order, but never hurts to double check that. You can do it really easily by just typing the /roll command that you learned in platoon certification. You can check who has your platoon role and just make sure it matches what the roster sheet says. That's really all you have to do right now. Starting tomorrow is when we officially roll things out. So with that, the main thing you'll be wanting to do is just talking to people in your platoon if you haven't already, and just kind of saying, hey, you guys are in my platoon. If you have any questions, let me know. Basically, that's kind of it. I mean, make sure that they all post in roll call. So if they haven't posted in March roll call yet, remind them to do that. And when this month ends, so by April 1st, you'll actually be doing our first official round of roster review with these new platoon roster reviews. So you'll be reviewing the people in your platoon. There's a pinned guide in Command Center on how to do it, but if you're platoon certified, you should already know how to do it. But if you have questions or something, or you forgot, it's fine. Just ask. But the guide in Command Center, I think is pretty detailed, pretty straightforward. So you can always go through that as a reminder. That tells you exactly how to do it. And you'll also be posting your first situation report. Well, many of you have already written many situation reports, but your first post-change report will be due on the 1st. So that will be what's going on in March. And then in April, what we'll be wanting to do is making sure that everyone in your platoon not only posts roll call, but lists their platoon in their roll call. A lot of people will just be copy-pasting and won't have it, so you'll have to be telling everyone, hey, go in and edit, just put in this extra line in there, and then from now on, just copy-paste that, or so on, making sure that that's in there. That just helps us. It's even going to make it easier. For example, if you want to check who in your platoon has posted roll call, what you can do is you can search in the roll call channel for the name of your platoon. Assuming everyone in your platoon can spell the name properly, you'll have to double check that. But assuming they can, you can actually just search, and you can just basically page back through all the people in your platoon that have posted in roll call. So that's the main reason that we want people to add that in the roll call. It also is just a reminder to them that what platoon they're in and that platoons exist as kind of a secondary thing. So that'll be the thing for April, is making sure everyone has the added line in their roll calls. Nothing huge, but just something to work on and manage that hopefully after we do this for a couple months, won't really need to worry about it. I mean, you want to make sure people are posting in roll call, but the platoon thing should become pretty normal. But yeah, basically at that point, it'll just be the regular platoon duties. So making sure people are posting in roll call, talking to them, trying to get them promoted, letting them know, hey, you need to do this and we'll get you promoted. These are the requirements for the next rank, that kind of thing for the people in your platoon. Usual, running your events, posting your sit rep at the end of the month. And yeah. One of the other big things is there's going to be a kind of rank restriction. If you're in a rough platoon, the maximum rank is Master Chief Petty Officer. If you're in a platoon, the max rank is Lieutenant. So essentially, if you hit MCPO and you're in a rough platoon, what you need to do is build up your platoon, your rough platoon enough that it becomes a full-fledged platoon. And if you're in a platoon and you reach Lieutenant, the next step up would be actually running your own division. So that's kind of the idea there, is to kind of create that pyramid or that ladder that way. And essentially, that's kind of the motivation for why you would want to go from rough platoon to platoon. And how to do that. And by the way, About WA has been updated with everything I'm saying, so it's all in there. you can always check that. That should be all up to date. If you do spot any errors, then they let me know, but I read through it a couple times. It should be all up to date and pretty helpful. But yeah, the main thing is that lost my train of thought. If you reach lieutenant, the next step up is to lead a division. If you're in a rough platoon and you're MCPO, you want to get it upgraded to a platoon. How do you do that? The old requirement was you need to have 4 people attend your event 4 times. It doesn't have to be 4 times in a row, but just 4 times over any span of time that you have an event that has 4 people. That's still the requirement. The additional requirement is that you have 5 people on your roster, can be including you, unless you are not listed on the platoon's roster, but that would not be the case if you're a leader. Platoon leaders are always listed on the roster, so it would include you. So 5 people total, and get a total of 4 people at your events 4 times. That's the rule. So not easy, but not crazy. You don't need to have 25 people or something like that. But what we're looking to do is basically say, if we have a platoon on a game, it means we have an established, consistent presence on that game. The idea that if we brought somebody in who happens to play it, there would be people for them to play with, there would be events for them to attend for it, all of that. So one other requirement is, of course, that platoons are required to run an event at least twice a month. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, because in order to become a platoon, you have to have your event attended by a few people, but that is a requirement to maintain that platoon status. Okay, so I think that about does it. Heads up on the situation reports, the template for that, it was updated a while ago, but just so you know, you don't need to have recommended promotions anymore, because one of the changes we're having is that platoon leaders can just promote and demote people. You have the manage roles permission on Discord, so you can do things like adjust people's players' roles or something if they need, but the main thing you can do is new recruits, you can give them all the roles that they need, especially active duty, WA, and Flame of the Ice here. They need those, but make sure they get all the roles. It says that in the recruiting guide, I believe, exactly what roles to give everybody, but if you're not sure, just ask in Command Center or some such. But the situation reports don't have, you don't need to put recommended promotions. You can just delete that, because you don't need to recommend them. If you want to promote somebody, you just promote them. You don't need to recommend. The rest is all the same. You still want to list active players rather than just listing who is on the roster. The reason being that the number of active players helps us know how the platoon is doing, because it may be you don't have a lot of people that are on your platoon roster, but a lot of people are playing the game. It's just not maybe their main game. So that's something that we still like to know, and it's also important for when we do the roster review, because we're going by game active. So that's one of, like, seeing if somebody is active in game is important to know. But the main thing is the platoons are going to be rolling out tomorrow. And like I said, I think for the average member, not a huge change, but it is a change. So just basically, if you have any questions, just shout them out, and hopefully we can get everything solved, and it'll be a pretty smooth rollout of the changes. I expect we may have like a couple of speed bumps and some such as everything gets sorted and figured out, but I think we're definitely pretty well prepared for it. So yeah, should go well. I will be around for office hours shortly.